everyone, in today's video I'm going to be showing you a classic elf on the shelf style elf with a little red suit, red arms, red legs. This, however, does have joints in it, so the arms, the elbow, and the shoulder move. Same thing with the hips and the knees, so he's a little bit mobile, posable, super, super cute. I hope you guys like this as much as I do. If you like the technique, I do have a skeleton that I made using the same process for Halloween that has a little bit more detail. It's a little bit more advanced. So fun. Check that video out. I'll put a link to it in the description box below, and I will see you all next time. Bye.
We are going to begin just by applying a background color of whatever background color you want to use. I did go in with a silver. I thought that was a nice neutral, but still, festive color for the background. Don't do something that's red, white, or like a tan color because that will distract from your elf. So whatever background you choose, go ahead and apply that, encapsulate it with clear acrylic. A light green would also be a really pretty background color, or green glitter. And then we're going to file this into shape with an E-file, smoothing it all out, making sure it's a nice apex, etc., etc. And now we're going to start sculpting our elf. I'm going to begin with an oval for our head, kind of tuck in the sides of the face just a little bit to bring it down into a chin. And then I'm going to be adding the ear to the side. Pick one side. Usually when you see pictures of the elves on a shelf, they are turned slightly to the side where you see one ear and not the other. Using the same color, I am going to be adding in a little bit of roundness for the cheeks. If you don't want to do extra sculpting for depth of the facial features, you can go ahead and skip those cheeks especially. I would still add in the little button nose because that really does sell it. But like I said, if you want to simplify it, you could skip that cheek contour if you wanted. After you have that first part done, you've got a good idea of the size of the head. You have a reference to how big to make your body. On a nail form backing, I'm going to sculpt a long oval of red acrylic for my elf's body. I have seen where a lot of people will decorate their elves with different clothes, put a little skirt on them or a coat or just different things. If you wanted to do more of that kind of thing or personalize it to what you have put on an elf yourself, you could certainly do so. So I've got the body sculpted and then I'm going to place it on the nail. As you can see, it extends past the tip of my nail, which is why we had to sculpt it separately and place it on the nail. With black acrylic, I'm going to be adding my elf's hair. Same thing like with the clothes, the skin tone and the hair color of your elf is fully customizable. There are more options than just one. I went with an elf that is, kind of a medium skin tone with black hair. I'm going to add that hair going down over the forehead a little bit and then a little tiny bit over the ear. You do not have to extend the hair all the way up to where the top of the head would actually be. You can skip that. There will be a hat covering it up, so you wouldn't see it anyway. It would just be a waste of acrylic. And it'd be harder to cover up that extra black acrylic with red because, you'd be having extra layers and it'd get extra thick. After you have the hair sculpted, it's got a nice little roundness to it. If you want to add the hat right away, go ahead. I'm going to take my red acrylic once again, pull it up into a nice point going right towards the very cuticle area of the nail, right towards the proximal fold. These elves do not have the classic puff on the end like a Santa hat does, so it just comes to that point. After that's done, cut 16 pieces of fine jewelry wire, bend them into a U shape using a curved pliers, and then twist that around so that you have a really twisted little piece of wire that has a circle on the end of it. This is tedious, very tedious, so just be prepared to be twisting for a while. Then string another piece of wire through the circle on the first one you did. Hold your circular pliers in the middle there, pinch that together, twist that second piece of wire so that you have the loops are interlocked with twists on each end. This makes your hinges. You need 8 total hinges, so it's 16 pieces of wire. Cut off the extra. Make sure it's twisted past where you cut so it's nice and tight. And then on the first one, we're going to be attaching it where our elf's shoulder would be. Don't worry about it looking a little rough at this point. There is that white collar that'll go over the top of the wire. Like I said, it looks kind of exposed. That'll get covered up. Attach another piece on the underside of the body where the hip would be. So you've got one for each shoulder and one for each hip. Make sure that the little hinges, though, do have enough mobility where they wiggle around if you swing your elf. You can kind of see them moving. Just check to make sure that they don't get stuck. After you have that done, I'm going to add a little more acrylic to the front of my elf's body. It seemed like it had a little dip on it, and I want to make sure that it is nice and rounded, nice and strong. So adding a little more acrylic right to the front of there just finishes it off. As I am finishing that, I'm also going to then do the little rim on the hat. You could do that later if you want to at the same time when I do the color, because I won't do that quite yet. But, I kind of like to finish things. I like to finish sections. And at least if I finish that part of the hat, I know, okay, the head is all done. I just have to work on everything on the body. It's a nice little mental check, little to-do list I can check off. So I'm going to add the white on the hat. Now on a nail form backing, once again, I'm going to be sculpting the arms and the legs. I'm going to make the entire arm, so both the forearm and the upper arm together. I'm going to sculpt a nice long bar shape. Very little detail here. It's really simple. Sculpt and pull that down, kind of round out the edges, and then take a craft blade dipped into some red or clear acrylic powder and cut the arm in half. That will be where your elbow is. You're going to need to make 2 of those, one for the left and one for the right. For the leg, it's the same process, except you're going to want to make it a little bit wider and a little bit longer. So sculpt your long bar shape with the acrylic, kind of pat it out, spread it out. If it's not quite perfect, you can always smooth out the shape later or file it a little bit if it needs to be. Same thing with your craft blade. Once it has started to turn matte, cut it right where the knee would be. After you have made all of these pieces and you will just leave them on your nail foam backing to set, once they are cured and they're dry and they're hardened, you should be able to just pop them right off. Once you have reached that point and you can pop them off, I'm going to place a little bit of poster putty under where the arm will go just to hold it in place while I'm working on it. And I'm going to set my arm onto the poster putty to hold it in place as I am attaching it to my shoulder hinge. So I'm going to kind of lay it on its side because that's where it's the most ergonomic for the hinge. And I'm going to attach the hinge with the tiniest little bit of some clear acrylic. And then I'm going to attach the other hinge to the other side. So these again are exposed. Don't worry about it, but just as a warning, they are exposed. So we've got the shoulder on one side and the elbow on the other. Same thing, attach them with clear acrylic. After the clear acrylic has set, it's not going to move at all. You can kind of pick it up from the poster putty, and then you're going to cover the back of the arm with all of the red acrylic that you need to cover up all of the wire bits, round it out, make it look finished. There is no painting or extra stuff going on this nail, so you want to make sure that all of these pieces look smooth and finished on their own. After you have that done, I'm going to just kind of hold it up out of the way. And same thing, I'm going to use poster putty to assist with this, just kind of hold pieces in place. I'm going to grab the forearm and I'm going to hold it underneath that elbow hinge. And I'm going to just use my finger and my tweezers to do this, which isn't usually the recommended method, but it wiggles so much that it's hard to do it otherwise. And then I'm going to, after the clear acrylic is set, I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to cover the back of it with more of the red acrylic. Same process, make it look nice and finished when you're done with it. If you do need to do any filing, you're going to have to make sure that you can really hold onto these pieces so that they don't wiggle back and forth as you're filing, or you may break them off. Repeat this whole system for the legs. The one thing I did do differently for the legs is that I placed some red acrylic on top of my hip piece before I added the knee one, not because I had meant to, but because I had forgot to add the knee in there. So then I went through and I added it later. Now we're going to cover up the rest of that. Same thing, just hold all of these pieces in place the best you can and stabilize them until the acrylic is set. It's one of those situations where I did things more than once just because I would do it. I'd think it's good. I'd let go. It would fall off. So as you're doing this, either wait extra amounts of time to make sure you don't have to do things twice, or expect to have to do a couple things twice and be okay with it. After you finished the upper leg, your thigh, then you can add the bottom part of the leg, the calf, the ankle, the foot, with the rest of that leg piece that you made. Go back and forth. Don't do it like I'm doing it, where you do like all the left side and then all the right side as I'm showing in the video. It's probably easier to go back and forth. And I did actually do that in real life. It's the same process for the right and the left. After all of your leg pieces are attached, they're cured, you don't have to worry about them getting bumped or wiggled around too much. Then take your white acrylic and you're going to sculpt the collar around the very top neckline of your little elf's bodysuit. As I am sculpting this, I noticed it. I expected it. My red acrylic pigment is starting to bleed into my white acrylic, even though it has been set for a sizable amount of time as I was doing all the arms and legs business. Red acrylic tends to do that. It's so pigmented usually that no matter how long you leave it, it is going to bleed into your white if you're doing white on top of it. If that happens, like it did for me, don't worry about it. I'm just going to add some white paint on top of it after it's done so that I can finish that up and make it look a little brighter anyhow. It's not a big deal. It's one of those necessary evils of the project. After I have the color done, I am going to grab my elf by one wrist and I'm going to hold him up just by that, using another tweezers to help me. And I'm going to add the little white kind of cuff on the end of the sleeves. I'm just going to do that on the arms. From the pictures I looked at, for the most part, all the elves I saw just had the white on the ends of their, like where their hand would be. So I'm going to do that on both sides. And then with acrylic paint, I'm going to do all of the detailing on the rest of my elf. So simple. This one is a really nice, easy, kind of an easy finishing touch to him because the body doesn't have any detail. All you really need to do is brighten up your white if that is necessary, which, you may be lucky and it won't be. And then add in the eyes and the mouth and a little bit of outlining possibly on the like the cheeks and the ears and around the facial features. It's really one of those, it's just fun. It's one of those like you just like sculpting a teddy bear. I love sculpting teddy bears because the shapes are also round and so smooth. Same thing like with sculpting this elf's body and the face. It's all just, it's fun shapes to sculpt. So after I have all of that white fixed, I'm going to go through with a darker shade of brown than my elf's face color, and I'm going to be adding some very subtle outlines to areas that I feel like need it. So under the chin, under the nose, kind of the start of the smile, the bottom line of the eyes, and in the ear. Then with white paint again, I'm going to be doing the whites of the eyes, just a nice round shape, flat bottom line where the cheeks come up and cover up the eyes. After you have that part of it done, I'm going to do a little bit of mixing and I'm going to make a pinky red for my elf's mouth. You want it to be something somewhat natural and neutral. To know how your paint works, hopefully you can tell what colors to stick together to do that. You do want to make sure though that you don't use anything if you're using, if your elf has a darker complexion like mine does, you don't want to use a color that has a very bright or white base to it because it'll make your elf's lips look kind of sick. So don't be afraid to use a more vibrant color like the pinky red I used. That's going to look healthier than, you know, a lighter mauve-y color is just going to look ill. Add some black outlines here and there, a little bit down the center of the mouth, go around the eyes, make sure that you give your elf those long, luxurious eyelashes that they all seem to have. Add the pupil, eyebrows, whatever you need to add to finish off your elf. If you want, you can also add a little white highlight in the eyes. I always like to do that, and a little bit of extra color on the cheeks, a little diluted red paint. Don't use pink on the cheeks. Same thing if it's a darker complected elf. And then we're going to be adding some top coat over each side individually, curing them so that the arms don't get stuck down. Matte top coat over elf's face. And that's it. This is the end of it. Like I said, if you like this technique and this style, I do have a skeleton that is so cool from a few months ago. I'll put a link to that in the description box below. Otherwise, I will see you all next time. Bye.